Welcome, welcome, welcome into another day and another lesson in A Course in Miracles. Today we are on lesson 72. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. And yesterday we were on lesson 71. Only God's plan for salvation will work. So before we get into our lesson for the day and practice for the day, let's begin by just taking a couple of minutes to just tune in, either closing your eyes or settling your gaze, bringing your attention and intention inward. By allowing all other thoughts and distractions to fade away into the distance as you bring your full attention to your breath, breathing in and breathing out. In through the nose. And out through the mouth. Really taking this time to slow everything down. Couple more breaths here. Opening ourselves up to receive the lesson for today. Wonderful. So let's get into our lesson. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for healing. Holding grievances is an attack on love's plan for happiness. Can use the little substitutions that are offered in the Course. So while we have recognized that the ego's plan for salvation is the opposite of God's, we have not yet emphasized that it is an active attack on God's plan, a deliberate attempt to destroy God's plan. In the attack, God is assigned the attributes which are actually associated with the ego, our separate sense of self. And while the ego appears to take on the attributes of God, the ego's fundamental wish is to replace God, or fear's fundamental wish is to replace love. In fact, the ego is a physical embodiment of that wish, right? So sometimes I'll switch the ego to Megan, right? And you could use your name. Megan is a physical embodiment of that wish. For it is that wish that seems to surround the mind with a body, keeping it separate and alone and unable to reach other minds except through the body that was made to imprison the mind. The limit on communication cannot be the best means to expand communication. Yet, the ego would have you believe that it is. Although the attempt to keep the limitations that a body would impose is obvious here, it is perhaps not so apparent why holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. But let us consider the kinds of things that you and I are apt to hold grievances for. Are they not always associated with something that a body does? A person says something you do not like. They do something that displeases you. They betray their hostile thoughts through some kind of behavior, right? You are not dealing here with what the person is. On the contrary, you are exclusively concerned with what they do in a body. You are doing more than failing and freeing the others or freeing whoever is coming to mind that you hold grievances from the body's limitations. You are actually actively trying to hold these people in your life or even yourself to it by confusing the body with who they really are and judging them as one. Herein is God attacked. For if God's Son is only a body, if God's creation, his Son is only a body, so must God be as well. A creator who's wholly unlike its creation must be inconceivable. So if God is a body, what must God's plan for salvation be? What could it be but death? In trying to present himself as the author of life and not of death, that would mean that God is a liar and a deceiver and full of false promises, offering illusions in place of truth. The body's apparent reality makes this view of God quite convincing. In fact, if the body were real, it would be difficult indeed to escape this conclusion, right? That God created us to die. Be another way of saying this. And every grievance that you and I hold insists that the body is real. It overlooks entirely what your equals are, who your equals are, who other people on this planet are, who your loved ones are. It reinforces your belief that whoever these people are that come to mind for you are a body and condemns them for it. And it asserts that their salvation must be death, projecting this attack onto God and holding God responsible for it. To this carefully prepared arena where angry animals seek for prey and mercy cannot enter, the ego comes to save you. God made you a body. Very well. Okay, let us accept this and be glad. As a body, do not let yourself be deprived of what the body offers. Take the little that you can get. God gave you nothing. The body is your only savior. It is the death of God and your salvation. Whew. Wow, this is the universal belief of the world you see. Some hate the body and try to hurt and humiliate it. Others love the body and try to glorify and exalt it. But while the body stands at the center of your concept of who you are attacking God's plan for salvation and holding your grievances against God and God's creation, that you may not hear the voice of truth and welcome it as your friend. Your chosen savior, the body or the ego, takes God's place instead. The body then becomes your friend, and then God or the voice for God is your enemy. We will try today to stop these senseless attacks on salvation, these senseless attacks on your own happiness. We will try to welcome it instead. Your upside-down perception has been ruinous to your peace of mind. You have seen yourself in a body and the truth outside of you, locked away from the awareness by your body's limitations. Now we are going to try to see this differently. The light of truth is in us, where it was placed by God. It is the body that is outside us and is not our concern. To be without a body is to be in our natural state. To recognize the light of truth in us is to recognize ourselves as we are. To see ourself, capital S, as separate from the body is to end the attack on God's plan for happiness, for healing, and to accept God's plan instead. And wherever God's plan is accepted, it is accomplished already. Our goal in the longer practice periods today is to become aware that God's plan for salvation has already been accomplished in us. To achieve this goal, we must replace attack with acceptance. As long as we attack it, we cannot understand. As long as we attack God's plan, we cannot understand what God's plan for us is. We are therefore attacking what we do not recognize. Now we are going to try to lay judgment aside and ask what God's plan for us is. What is salvation, Father? I do not know. Tell me that I may understand. Then we will wait in quiet for God's answer. We have attacked God's plan for salvation without waiting to hear what it is. We have shouted our grievances so loudly that we have not listened to God's voice. We have used our grievances to close our eyes and to stop our ears. Now we would see and hear and learn. What is salvation, Father? Ask and you will be answered. Seek and you will find. We are no longer asking the ego, asking our sense of separate selves, asking our fear what healing is and where to find it. We are asking it of truth. Be certain then that the answer will be true because of whom you ask. Whenever you feel your confidence wane and your hope of success flicker and go out, repeat your question and your request, remembering that you are asking of the infinite creator of infinity who created you like itself. What is salvation, Father? I do not know. Tell me that I may understand. He will answer. Be determined to hear. One or perhaps two shorter practice periods, an hour, will be enough for today, since they will be somewhat longer than usual. These exercises should begin with this: holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Let me accept it instead. What is salvation, Father? Then wait a minute or two in silence, preferably with your eyes closed, and listen for God's answer. So we are going to get into our practice period today. And if you want to use substitutions, like instead of God, that's why I like to, use substitutions so that you know what some of them are, that you can use love, you can use creator. Like, don't let the form take you away from the content, from the purpose of what it's asking us to do today. Just to recognize that we are so much more than just a body, and that there is an answer, and that holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for your happiness, your healing, your salvation. And let's find out what it really is by taking the time and getting into our practice period, which will be 15 minutes. And again, it told us days ago that it's twice a day for 15 minutes, and also the shorter practice periods, which I'll review again at the end. So remembering this, right, that we are going to try to lay judgment aside, and we are going to recognize it's already been accomplished in us, right? We have to replace attack with acceptance. As long as we attack it, right? Attack the fact that, forgiveness is our function, right? And we're attacking what we don't recognize. So now we're going to try to lay judgment aside and ask what God's plan for us is. So as a reminder, what is salvation, Father? I do not know. Tell me that I may understand. And we're going to wait in quiet. So let's get started. What is salvation, Father? I do not know. Tell me that I may understand. There's a second longer practice period for today, 10 to 15 minutes, and then for the shorter ones, 1 or 2 shorter practice periods, an hour. That should begin with holding grievances as an attack on God's plan for salvation. Let me accept it instead. What is salvation, Father? And then waiting a minute or so in silence, preferably with your eyes closed, to listen to his answer. Much love. I'll look forward to joining you tomorrow as we move on to lesson 73.